Here we are
Hello.
live.
We're live.
Greetings, greetings, greetings. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Earth School Journey, where life is the curriculum and experience is the teacher. I am your co host, Uni, and this is my lovely co host, Umi Steph. How are you today, Umi?
I'm good. I'm hot, but I'm good.
Yeah, that's good. It's good to hear. Yeah, the weather has switched up on us so quickly.
Yeah.
Like it was just cold. I had on a jacket literally last week, and now I'm like wrapping my sweater around my waist.
Right.
So hot.
Yeah.
But yeah, welcome everyone. We are so happy to be back for another week. Thank you so much for joining us. We are in the month of May 2026, and we have been talking about material security and spirituality. Last week, we went into what it meant to be rooted and resourced. We talked about quite a few things last week, what it means to be rooted within ourselves and resource through practical support and spiritual trust, especially during seasons of uncertainty. We talked about how healing survival patterns and expanding our capacity to steward what we receive and moving beyond fear allows us to shift from simply seeking security into living with greater purpose, alignment, and co creation. So, yeah, we've really been getting into the thick of things, just thinking about the world that we live in and how a lot of the security, the innate sovereignty security that we should have, being able to grow our own food, being able to sew our own clothes, being able to steward our own land and things of that nature. How so many of those things have been taken away from us, and it has rocked our foundation. You know what I mean? And it's like, how do we get back to feeling secure materially? How do we get back to feeling secure spiritually? I feel like it's really one of the biggest challenges, if not the biggest challenge that we're facing in the world today, with everything that we have going on. What do you think, Uni? What do you think about what we talked about last week and in the weeks this month so far?
Yeah. So far, it's been a great conversation because it's been enlightening even for me. For us, I feel like we came into this month very like, I don't feel like I had this. At least I know I did. I came into this month like hey, this is one of those areas that I don't feel good about. You know what I mean? Like I don't feel I have a good hold on. And we try to be honest with our classmates about where we are with stuff. And so I love that we've been having this conversation about security and you know because it's Taurus, we were talking about material security, but I think the realization that we've come to this month is that it's security in general. Like you're not going to feel like you have material security if you don't feel like you have security in all areas, right? Um you're not going to feel secure if you don't feel aligned. You're not going to feel secure if you're not tapped into spirit, right? You're not going to feel secure if your relationships are unstable. You're not, and so just making those connections has been it's been a really eye-opening month for me. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's same for me. We were definitely both, just like, okay, the world that we live in today, again, it doesn't lend us the ability to naturally feel that safety and security. There's just so many things that are constantly vying for our money, our time, our attention, just everything we have, our energy. You know what I mean? Like it's just so much. And so it's been very eye opening. And I've had some aha moments that have made me really think like, is is this a blockage that I'm feeling, or is this something I should be leaning more into? You know what I mean? And unfortunately, not really having the examples in my life, of that, like really secure women who are, you know what I mean, whose self-worth is not, rooted in money or men or, you know what I mean, appearances or having lots of friends, just all of those things. Like there's just so many things that I've seen around me that, it's just like, yeah, no, I wouldn't want my security to be in those things, and some of the other readings that we've been doing on the side have really been helping to kind of like subconsciously open me up so that I am really getting more aligned with my higher self and more aligned with the Most High, and knowing that the only way I'm gonna really feel that true secureness and being rooted within myself is being connected to the Most High. One of the things that would come to me, Omi, it's another one of those where I don't remember where it came from, and I don't remember the exact phrase either, but it's something about being near a ever flowing stream or river, or constantly being, you know what I mean, just having this sense of currency, you know what I mean, and being near this flowing body of water. I'm gonna look that up at some point, and I will come back to you guys, maybe while Umi is talking in a little bit. But that's what I want to feel like. I just want to feel like I'm like a tree rooted near this fresh flowing body of water that is just always being replenished and just so strong, and just really in alignment with currency, and I'm getting tongue tied because now I want to know what it is. Of course, right? It's like, what is it? But it's okay. We are going to move on, because this week we are going to be talking about Chiron, and specifically Chiron and Taurus. And specifically Chiron and Taurus because it is going to be a major transit coming up, starting this year, and lasting until 2034. So we're going to be talking about that. And it's also Umi's and my Chiron return. And so we felt really pulled to discuss this. And we felt like it's very interesting that we chose this theme. Of course, yes, we chose it because it's Taurus season. So it, really makes sense to lean into second house themes, values, security, material, you know what I mean? Those sorts of things. But this transit coming up is going to be something serious. Umi is a little on the, I don't know what the word is, hesitant side.
A little hesitant, I would say. I'm a little reluctant
for the transit to happen, and me, I'm just like, I want it to happen. Like I want a point of healing. I want this Chiron return. I want it to hit and be like, boom, you're healed. That's what I want. I don't know how realistic that is, but I just want Chiron to be like, boom, you're healed, and I'm good. I'm ready. Like everything, I've shed all of the layers. I've you know what I mean? I'm able to be my true self. It's like I'm fresh out the womb. I have experienced all the hurt and all the things that I need to experience for this first half of my life. I'm starting perimenopause, so there's this changes happening and all these things. And so I'm ready to burn all this down, okay? I'm ready. I'm ready. That's what I want Chiron and Taurus to do. Just burn it all down. I don't know how realistic that is, but here's the hoping, okay?
Right.
I'll drink to that. All right, so Umi, you want to tell us a little bit about Chiron and Taurus? When is it going to be entering and all that good stuff?
So yes, we'll talk about that. and I'm laughing because when you were having trouble remembering the thing that you were trying to say, I was actually in my mind going over how I was going to tell the story about what Chiron is and going, I'm going to butcher this. Like, I know the story.
We know it.
I know it. I just, am I going to be able to tell it properly? I don't know. Right?
Don't you hate that? Oh God, we're gonna get it together, people. Thank y'all for being here with us as we get it together. Okay,
we're special. We're very special.
We are.
So Chiron is retrograding into Taurus from June 19th until September 17th. June 19th just happens to be right before my birthday. I'm a June Cancer, so late June is my birthday. And then it will go direct again in April of 2027, April 14th, 2027, until July 19th of 2033. That is when it is going to, at least for me, hit my Chiron return. And then it's going to retrograde again from October 2023 until May of 2033 until May of 2034. So if you were born with Chiron and Taurus, get ready. It's coming. It is coming. That means we are all of a certain age. And, yes, I am reluctant. I'm reluctant because my Chiron happens to be in the 8th house. I don't like 8th house things. And I probably don't like 8th house things because my Chiron is in the 8th house. Right. And so I'm a little reluctant to deal with that. But do you want me to go ahead and talk about what Chiron is?
Yes, please. Yes.
Okay. So Chiron is actually an asteroid. And it's named after a mythological being, right? Chiron, who was half man, half horse. So he was a centaur. And part of him was immortal and the other part was mortal. And there was a whole battle with Hercules and he got shot with a poisonous arrow. Actually, I am remembering some of this story, aren't I? See? Right? And so the poisonous arrow wounded him on his mortal half, right? And so he was always in pain. And that it was his unhealable wound because that arrow had that poison that he was just always in pain. And in trying to heal his wound, he learned so much about healing, learned all of these things. And in learning that, healed a lot of other people because he was able to pass that knowledge on to help other people heal. He was never really able to heal himself. And that's why they call it the unhealable wound, right? So Chiron is always associated with this deep wound that you just kind of never really get over, right? I personally don't believe that anything is unhealable, right? I do believe that we can get to a point of healing it. I think it's just the metaphor that we use for what this is, because a lot of people are not going to heal it. They're not going to be ready to deal with it. I mean, look how reluctant I am for the Chiron return. I'm like, I don't want to deal with it, right? What a Chiron return is wherever Chiron was in your chart when you were born, it's coming back to that exact same position. And it kind of, tickles that that wound. It's
not like tickle.
It's gonna tickle at it and poke at it a little bit. I mean, I'm gonna say tickle because I don't want to be stabbed.
Oh, please, Chiron, no stabbing, please.
No stabbing. I don't want to be stabbed. I was stabbed enough when I got wounded. Leave me alone.
Right.
No. And so, it's basically a time to kind of face that wound.
Yeah.
And it's a time when either you can, face it and put it into some greater purpose, use it to heal others, or it can be a midlife crisis. It's really right. You get to choose. You do get to choose. I'm reluctant, but I'm still gonna choose healing.
Yes, Lord. Praise the
I'm gonna
Lord. Yes.
that's
Yes.
what I'm gonna choose it. And so, it's a time when you just kind of you get to grow up some, right? I know that there are other cultures that you didn't grow up until you were 50. Like, you weren't considered a real adult until 50. And, I kind of feel like this is the put up or shut up time, right? You're going to finally have to face this thing. And I think for a lot of people, it's the thing that holds them back, right? Because you always feel hurt by it. And at a certain point, either you're going to just stop feeling hurt by it, or you're just going to let it, there's lots of curmudgeons out there who just are always angry about the same thing until they die. I don't want to be that person. Not saying I'm angry about anything specific, but my eighth house Chiron, I do have a lot of issues with vulnerability and trust and stuff like that, and we'll get more into all of that later. But that's a little bit about what Chiron and a Chiron return is.
Thank you so much for that. As you were talking, and mind you, I've heard the Chiron story before, of course, several times, and I'm familiar with it. I don't remember it off the top of my head or anything. I would have definitely butchered that, so thank you. Um, but as you were talking, I kind of feel, and I could be wrong, but you know how we talk about the separation from the oneness,
Yes.
I kind of feel like when you were talking about how part of Chiron is immortal and the other part is mortal and that human side, and I'm just like, wait a minute, is that where the oneness, like, is that where we
Ooh.
separate from, you know what I mean? And
The wasp is back.
oh no.
If I start looking terrified and running, that's why. Keep talking.
I can't be talking my sis over here about the
Fighting for my life.
fighting in the background, like in those movies and shows where it's steady talking and the person in the background. All right. But on a serious note, like, I feel like I was getting Chiron is, because with every human life, whether, I don't care what you have or what you don't have, when you are born into this world, and I think it's kind of, I don't want to, I'm going to leave that part out, but I think everyone who's born into this world is born of some sort of pain or hurt. Like, there's something that we have to overcome, all of us. And that's why we all have Chiron in our chart. That's why we all have a Chiron return. You know what I mean? And so, yes, I was getting that kind of like that something in my spirit about Chiron being kind of like that separation. And I want to believe, and I'm telling you, I want to believe that the Chiron return is going to help us get deeper into the oneness. I don't know, or reconnect, or show us how, or show us where we have done the work to, to lean into the oneness and reconnect with our spiritual self and heal that wound.
Yeah.
It may be wishful thinking, but
no, I love that perspective. I'd never really thought about that, Chiron being like this bridge kind of between the spiritual world and the human world. But yes, he was half immortal and half mortal, and that's kind of what we are, right? We are half mortal and half immortal, and our mortal half is always kind of hurt.
Right? It's always something. Like,
always kind of hurt. Just a little bit.
Try. Yeah.
Well, it is the part of us that is no longer, I'm not going to say is no longer connected, but it's the part of us that doesn't really know the connection anymore.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so I think that is a beautiful way to look at this.
Thank you.
Especially thinking about how kind of early in life, something generally happens that we forget, because we're not born not knowing. I feel like we do remember when we're born, we know when we're born, but we go through that period of forgetfulness. It's It's why we don't remember most of our childhood, right? It was because we're in that forgetting process so that we can be in the world, and I think thinking of the Chiron return kind of as a moment to take a look at that, examine it, heal it intentionally. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a really productive and beautiful way to like look at Chiron as a way to reconnect with your oneness. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I'm telling you, as you were speaking, I'm just like, yeah, there's something's coming to me about that. You know what I mean? I started thinking of like Sagittarius themes. I know Sag is like that half man, half horse. So I was
Centaur,
like,
yeah.
oh, yeah, you know what I mean? And it's very, very spiritual, very Jupiterian. You know what I mean? So I don't know, but I definitely, I don't know. I'm just hoping and praying that this Chiron will help us to heal. You know what I mean? Heal the earth, heal, it's earth energy, you know, Earth Day is during Taurus season, like on the first day of Taurus season. So
Yeah.
just hoping that, we can send out, healing energy to the earth, and the earth, Mother Earth reflects that healing energy back to us. And it just, there's just be this explosion of healing. This is what I'm hoping and praying for, but we'll see how it goes, guys. We're going to keep it. Look, stay tuned. Stay tuned. So, what is Chiron in Taurus? So we've talked about, when Chiron is going to enter Taurus, when it's going to go retrograde, and then direct again. And I'm sorry, when it's going to retrograde, go direct, and then retrograde again. And guys, let us know in the comments, where is your Chiron? Are you a part of the Chiron and Taurus generation with us? Because if you are, I love you. Your pain. Because we have similar wounds, and this is why I don't understand why we have such hard times coming together. You know what I mean? We all in that millennial, zillennial, like that kind of the I'm not going to say the years born, but you know what I mean, like those upper millennial people, 40 to 50 years old, around right now. We have a lot of us have Chiron and Taurus, and these wounds are around self-worth and our security, not having enough, not feeling valuable. A lot of us were like the latchkey kids. Our parents worked, and we spent a lot of time alone. We had to entertain ourselves. We watched a lot of television. You know what I mean? Like it was a lot. Like I feel like our generation spent a lot of time raising ourselves because our parents were, either working or off doing whatever. You know what I mean? There was a lot of neglect in the Chiron and Taurus generation. And so, we all have had to learn how to heal ourselves through reconnecting to our bodies and our internal sense of stability. I didn't even know how unstable I was inside until I really started to pay attention to what was going on around me. I'm just like, wait a minute, this isn't what's going on around me is not right. You know what I mean? And I had to get myself out of externally unstable situations that were reflecting my internal instability. You know what I mean? Right. Realizing that my self-worth didn't come through achieving. I was in AP classes. Oh, I got straight A's. Oh, I was on the honor roll. I won the spelling bee. Like all of these things, at the end of the day, what do they mean if I'm not really doing what is making my heart happy right now today? Right. You know what I mean? I achieved all these things, and for my parents to turn around and say, so what? Right. You know what I mean? Right. Like I like seriously, like just not getting the good jobs, you did great, or any of that. Like when I really went the extra mile to study and do well on my tests and my projects and things like that, there's a little girl inside of me who still feels, like, unvalidated or invalidated because I never got the good job from my parents. Now my teachers were, you're one of the best students, I love having you in my class, once I got over being super talkative, of course. Once I got out of that phase and I actually started, to, be quiet and really like pay attention in class, and my grades rose, and I really turned things around from like, maybe like third grade on. And I didn't get the reinforcement, the support to help me keep going. And again, there's still like a little part of me that is still lacking or feels a sense of lack because of that. You know what I mean? And so I don't know how that resonates for you all, but we're going to go through the different houses and things like that, and we'll talk about how it may show up for each person. When we talked about hers being in the 8th a little bit, mine's is the 7th house, direct relationship and validation wounds. You know what I mean? Like
Christy, my baby, I love you. Your Chiron's in the 7th house.
Wow. See, it's so true. Like you just look around and you're like, but what about me? You know what I mean?
Yes.
And when you don't have your parents to give you that love, it really rocks your foundation. There's cracks and things like that are just not good.
She's in the chat. It's so funny.
Oh, what'd she say? Hey, sissy. She said, love you too. So, once you are able to integrate, and heal that wound, and at least peel back some layers of that onion. You know what I mean? Like I've definitely been peeling back some layers. It feels like a lifelong. It literally feels like a lifelong. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, just trying to learn what it means for me to be abundant and have, the self-love and self-respect and honoring myself and whatever it is that I need to do so that I feel that safety and security within myself. I think it's so interesting that so many of us are coming of age who have Chiron and Taurus and getting into that. You know what I mean? I feel like what we are here to do is really teach the next generation about, the value that they have within themselves. Some of the things like I mentioned earlier, just thinking about how, I would love for more children to learn how to cook from scratch and how to sew, how to grow their own fruits and vegetables. You don't have to rely on, the government to supply or big food chains or companies to supply you with food. You could go plant a seed and grow something. You know what I mean? You have an inherent value. There's skills that you have that can be cultivated that are inherently true to you. And so I think that, again, those of us with Chiron and Taurus, we have a big wound, big healing, and big ways that we can help and change the world for the next generation. So I'm really, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful.
Yeah. I this Chiron and Taurus, and I kind of just want to clarify for people. Yes, our whole generation pretty much has Chiron and Taurus, which means we all have wounds around self-worth and security and scarcity, or like that's the core wound, right? But the house that it's in is going to determine where it shows up in your life, right? How it shows up in your life. It's always going to be around that same thing, and Taurus is a very material security, sign, which is why we're talking about it this month, while we're talking about material security, because our generation is about to really go through this Chiron return, and all of these wounds are going to come to the surface. And it's kind of the time of, are you going to heal it, or are you just going to let it fester? You know? And so I believe a lot of us will heal it, and I think that it's interesting that, around 50 is kind of when a lot of people become, start the grandparents start, right? And the babies born into that generation are going to have the same wounds as their grandparents.
Very interesting.
So it's a perfect time to be healing those things, because you're going to have a little person, or a generation
Yeah,
of little people
yeah,
who are going to need that healing, because they're all going to have similar wounds for different reasons, but similar wounds, right? Yeah.
yeah. For sure, for sure. That's very, very interesting because a lot of people talk about how and unfortunately I didn't experience it. My grandparents passed away when I was young, and I was estranged from like my dad's side, so I didn't have that grandparent kind of like love growing up. But I know some people who would talk about how their grandmas and granddads would let them get away with things that they wouldn't let their parents get away with. So like the kids that, for like, as say if I was a grandparent, like my daughter, I was super hard on her, but once I had the grandbaby, they get away with whatever. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's
Right.
because you kind of, there's this feeling of there's something there. So it's so interesting that you point that out. It's like we give, we're giving something that we didn't maybe know to give to our own children, to our grandchildren. You know what I mean? This level of wisdom that we have is interesting. And knowing, and them knowing that, grandma or grandpa got you no matter what.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the most important thing. And um, again, not having my grandparents, I feel like that seventh house is like, it just shows up in so many different ways. You know what I mean? I know the seventh house is like grandparents is not necessarily in the seventh house, but I still feel like it's the relationships. You know what I mean? That one
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
one relationship. So yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
we're going to talk a little bit about Chiron in the houses and how it may show up for everyone. And again, it is dependent upon your rising sign. So wherever the sun was rising at the time of day that you were born is going to determine where Chiron is in your chart. Okay, so I don't necessarily have the uh, the chart, but if I'm not mistaken, like around 6 a.m. is like it starts Aries rising, and then like everybody is it like how often does it change the rising signs? Yeah,
Girl, I don't know. I guess it's like every
yeah,
2 hours, I think.
yeah. I think it's every two
Every 2 hours.
hours. It goes, yeah. So like within a 24-hour period, it goes through all the signs, yeah. So but you definitely would need to know what time you were born in order to know exactly
Mm-hmm.
what house Chiron is in your chart, and able to know how it shows up. And to be honest with you, some of the things that we speak about, you may say, yeah, that's it for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, so we'll dive right in. So if you have Chiron in the first house, if you have Chiron and Taurus, excuse me, in the first house, it is going to really affect your identity and how you embody your energy, how you show up in the world. It's literally in your first house. This is how the world perceives you and how you perceive yourself. You know what I mean? And so, one of the things that you're going to have to do is you're going to have to learn how to be confident and learn how to accept yourself, even when the world around you or when the world around you seems to not accept you.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's really the lens that you have, because sometimes it's all about perception. You know what I mean? It could be something that started off when you were young, and now it's kind of like echoing throughout your life, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Um, The second house is talks about your self-worth, your money, and scarcity. So people who have Chiron and Taurus in second house, they're gonna feel this energy like it's like a double whammy almost. You know
Right.
what I mean? They're gonna have probably those are gonna be the people who hoard money and who maybe like cheap or something. I don't know. Like that's kind of what I'm feeling coming up, or just like some things when it comes to currency and money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It may just never feel like it's enough. You
Mm-hmm.
know, so they're
Yeah.
gonna have like these scarcity things going on, and one of the things that they're going to have to do is the same thing that we're all doing with Chiron and Taurus, but they're going to really have to build that inner security. You know what I
Right.
mean? In order to feel secure within themselves.
Yeah.
You want to
I
take
mean,
the next few? Oh, go ahead.
yeah, I was going to say about the second house, it's basically a double helping of Taurus energy because that's Taurus's natural house.
Yeah,
So Chiron and Taurus amplify. I feel like it's kind of amplified in that second house because that's where Taurus lives. You
yeah,
know.
for sure. I can't
Yeah.
imagine that. Wow.
I feel like it would be it's definitely a not enough, a not enoughness in
Yeah.
the financial and material realm.
Hmm.
Um Definitely. And self-worth and value. They probably have problems with values, maintaining their values. I mean, that's going to be across the board for all of these because it's Taurus energy, but I can imagine it just being amplified in that second house.
Yeah.
So third house it's your voice, it's your communication. Third house is also siblings, so it could be in something that involves siblings. So if you have Chiron and Taurus in third house, your sense of security can be wrapped into any of those particular things, any of those third house things. Maybe you don't feel comfortable talking. Maybe you feel insecure when you speak. You feel like you are not able to communicate well, right? Um, and so for third house Chiron people, you really need to learn how to kind of trust your voice, trust your perspective, right? I would imagine that if it involves siblings, you're going to have to come to peace and terms with those siblings, you know? And remember, we're all going to have stuff, right? We may all have stuff with our siblings, right? But the Chiron wound is specific to like it's a wound that always hurts. It's probably been hurting you since you were a kid, right? And so now is the time to heal that, right? Um, to look at it to gain a better perspective. So really leaning into trusting your own perspective. Do you want to go on to the fourth house?
Sure. So the fourth house is about your emotional safety, family wounds. It also represents the home and the mother. So you may have some wounds related to where you have lived, maybe where you grew up. Maybe that it kind of like shows up often, like your safety is constantly threatened in some sort of way, especially related to your home. You may have issues with your mother and things of that nature. I feel like Chiron in the fourth house can be very daunting because it is your mother is like your first teacher. And so I feel like those wounds can be rather, they could definitely travel, of course, like go on throughout your life. Maybe you don't feel safe with your mother. Maybe she has done things to make you feel unsafe, or just your home environment just either has never or just does not feel safe in some way, shape, or form. And so you feel that within yourself, you know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
understanding that your body is your first home. So getting that inner stability and safety within yourself is going to be your it's going to be your probably your biggest challenge. You know what I mean? Maybe you didn't feel safe from the of the womb. You know what I mean? Like, so it can be really, really deep, that lack of security and that safety, because it's coming from the place of home, and a lot of times the mother energy.
Mm-hmm. Okay. The fifth house. Fifth house is an interesting one because it's fifth house is all about creativity and joy and being seen. It really is the house of fun and self expression, right? Um, Self expression in a different way from third house energy, right? It's not third house is really it's communication between people, um, or communication in general. But fifth house is self expression. It's your artistic creativity. You know, I can imagine someone with a fifth house Chiron and Taurus maybe being a creative person who is just not secure in allowing that to be seen, who's really trying to hide, you know, who doesn't feel seen because they hide. Right, because understand that like a lot of times we're the ones creating the issue because of our insecurity. We're insecure about this, and so, you know, you're, oh, nobody ever sees me, but you're not putting yourself out there, right? um or you're not putting your true self out there, you're hiding yourself. You may feel, I mean, because it's the house of joy and fun, you may feel like if, when you're having fun, you don't, you're unable to have that security, right? And it can also go the other way, where you're trying to hide your feelings of insecurity, so all you ever want to do is be the fun one, right? You
Mm.
know, it can flip, it can show up in different ways. And so really allowing yourself to like authentically be you, to express yourself, to have fun, to be in joy, that would be what you want to do to kind of embrace that Chiron wound of the fifth house.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, I think a lot of the themes that you're going to see is healing is the only way to heal is to go through. You know what I mean? It's to do the thing that it seems Chiron is stopping you from doing. It's like there's this threshold maybe that you may see, and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to go over there. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
don't feel safe over there. I don't want to go over there, but you gotta go. You gotta cross to the other side. You gotta do it. You know what I mean? That's the healing. And so for the sixth house, it talks about productivity, usefulness. Now my Chiron is actually between the sixth and the seventh house, so I have some of this energy as well. Um, Feeling like I either have to be really productive or feeling like I'm completely lazy. I don't want to do anything. Feeling like I have to be useful. And on the flip side, despising that. You know what I mean? Like just
Mm-hmm.
really a lot of things in the date. Like it's kind of like your day to day world. Like you may find that you're just going on about your business, doing what you got to do on the day to day, and you are finding yourself just just problems and things just pop out of nowhere. And so again, you want to hide, you don't want to do too much, you don't want to be, you don't want to be out in the world. I know people like that who when they go out, it's like always something with them when they go
Mm.
out. Like no matter what they do, like it's always something. And then like especially in like the date, like their day to day, it's like it's kind of like always some like accidents and things are just kind of like always seem to be plaguing them. You know what I mean? For that, I have honestly recommended like some spiritual work. You know what I mean? Just kind of like taking salt baths, saging more often, getting into prayer and meditation, those sort of things, like really connecting with your spiritual self. Because I feel like, that sixth house being heavy earth energy with that Virgo. And it can also lend towards like perfectionism themes and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it can be pretty daunting, you know what I mean? And I feel like the key to that is to really get more in touch with your spiritual self. You know what I mean? That's what I
Mm-hmm.
feel like. I feel like it's so earthy and it needs to be more spiritual. You know what I mean? So human earth Virgo is actually the only human astrology sign. You know what I mean? Like you know what I mean? So like
Yeah.
really thinking about that. And of course the healing is going to come through also balancing self-care, taking care of yourself, and again, really leaning into your spiritual side, not overworking yourself. You know what I mean? Not being too useful, not
Right.
allowing people to, you know what I mean, work you till you can't go anymore. Just those sorts of things. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just another note on that sixth house. The sixth house is also associated with health. So if you're about to go through your Chiron return in Taurus and it's in the sixth house, just be careful about your health. Be conscious of that, about really taking care of yourself, because that is something that is associated with that sixth house. Seventh house, Chiron and Taurus in the seventh. That seventh house, is the house that involves relationships, in validation. It would also be a sense of justice, a sense of peace and justice, and the formation of, like, I call the seventh house really like the formation of alliances and contracts, and that's what a relationship is. It's an agreement for you to be together, right? It's the house of agreements. And so your wound is going to have to do with that. It probably has to do with early relationships, is where it comes from, but it's something that's you're going to see it over and over again in your relationships. And so that lack of security in relationship, lack of security in trusting someone to form a relationship, right? So you may be somebody who doesn't really like to commit, right? That doesn't, or if you do commit, that your expectations are really high and you want everything to be a certain way, and then it's not that way, and so you would rather not be in that relationship, right? And so maintaining and forming relationships would be where that wound is. Excuse me. And so really understanding and standing in your self-worth, right? And this is, I want to say this because it will apply to all of them, and I probably should have said it in the beginning, but whatever house your Chiron is in, if you lean into the opposite house, you're going to find relief, right? And so if you have a seventh house Chiron and you're having issues with that formation of relationship, you probably need to lean into that first house energy of self-worth, of self, care, and knowing your authentic who you are and standing in that confidence, right? Because if you stand in your own, then it's easier to be in partnership, right? So that's really how I see seventh house Chiron and Taurus. Is in order to be secure with someone else, you have to be secure in yourself.
Yeah, that's 100,000%. And something I've had to learn, and just making sure, like you said, like with the forming relationships is like really key, because I feel like a lot of times with that Chiron in the seventh house, I've definitely overlooked like red flags and things like that, things that I'm not like, and later on I'm like, how did I get in partnership with this person? Like, we are not aligned, we do not have similar, you know what I mean, ideals and values and things like that, and making sure that I'm aligning with people who value the things that I value and care about some of the things that I care about. And yeah, for sure, like putting my own self first, yeah, it's definitely been a journey. And so next is Chiron in the eighth house. Chiron in the eighth house is Chiron in the eighth house is deep. It's deep. It is about shared resources. It is about contracts. It's about inheritances. It is about intimacy and trust and vulnerability. Just like, it's like the deepest parts, you know what I mean? And it's those things that it's really, I don't know, like I feel like I feel like people with Chiron in the eighth house feel pain on a deeper level than a lot of people. You know what I mean? Like you're not even gonna like you probably get used to the like those deep levels of pain. Like you go like I don't know, like I feel like it's like of course me having a lot of Scorpio energy, I feel like it's like you feel the wounds of yourself and others like just way deeper than people can imagine, and it's a very interesting place, and I can understand why someone with that energy would be a little hesitant to see it come now, like now that I'm thinking about it and sitting with it,
I'm a little shook, a little bit.
I yeah, but maybe justice, and you know what I mean, and things will be, maybe those contracts will be honored at this time, maybe when it comes back around, that emotional depth and will transform not only yourself but the people around you, you know what I mean, like maybe we gotta, I don't know, like when I think about eighth house energy, because they talk about it being very occultish and very deep and dark and all of those things, but I think there's light beneath the darkness, you know what I mean, like if you go into the center of even the earth, there's like crystal caves and light and fire and all these different things going on. There's light in the center, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I feel like even if you go deep, sometimes you have to get through all the darkness to get back to the light. But I feel like allowing yourself to lean into that and know that having Chiron in the eighth house, like you're not going to experience things. It's not shallow at all. It's very
Yeah.
deep. And I don't know. Do you want to add anything to that? I know it's something near to you. I almost feel like I can't speak on it. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know that I have anything I want to add necessarily. It is, that house of shared resources, and I will say a recurring theme in my life is feeling like I don't have enough help. The resource that I feel like I lack the most is reciprocal energy. Like
Mhm.
I put out a lot and I feel often that I don't get it back. Right.
Mhm.
And I'm not just talking financially, but yes, financially, but yes, also with just doing stuff, Owen.
Oh, yeah.
you
I
know,
yeah.
feeling like I help people and then they don't, reciprocate that, or people don't keep up their end of the bargain. Um, Another thing I always say, especially when I do astrological readings, is I say that seventh house is how you get into a relationship, and eighth house is how you stay in one.
Right.
You know
Right.
what I mean? Because most people end up divorcing over sharing money, right? And eighth house is the shared resources. Um, and mine doesn't really, it doesn't really show up in a money aspect so much. It does to a degree, but it's for me, it's more reciprocal energy, because
Mm,
that's the resource that as a Cancer I lack.
yeah.
So I don't want to get too deep into it. Anyway,
It's deep though. It's deep.
it is deep. Eighth house is very deep. I mean, there's also, it can go a lot deeper than that. Eighth house is also the house of sex, so there can be sexual abuse. There can be, the wounds can be very deep and ongoing. Um, Ninth house. So my Chiron whole sign is ninth house, and Placidus is eighth house. Did I say that right? Ninth house. Okay, so ninth house is higher education. It's faith. It's religion. It's belief. It's broader knowledge and perspective. And I see this wound being, um, someone maybe who got higher education and felt guilty for it. Who maybe church hurt is at the forefront of their their wound. Maybe early in life in church, or in their religious, whatever upbringing, there was some kind of deep wound in that area. Um, it could be, anything in that area, anything in that like broader perspective, and that religious, higher education, even travel, you know what I mean? Although I have a hard time figuring out a wound that would be associated with that unless you physically got hurt. But this is Taurus energy, so we're talking about kind of this feeling of security. Um, and so I would imagine like feeling insecure in your knowledge, like
Mhm.
your ability to be intelligent and smart and speak, intelligently. I could see that being a ninth house Chiron. I know for me, um, I always feel like I don't know enough, right? When in reality, I generally know. I'm talking about just plain like knowledge. I'm a clearinghouse of information. I generally just have information about things for no apparent reason. Why? Because it came across and I just had to read everything there was possibly to read about it. I don't know why. That's just what it is. Um, and so the healing for that one is really um trusting your wisdom, right? Using it and not just storing it. So just kind of grounding that wisdom in actual experience, doing something with it. Because yes, I have tons of information. I don't use it all. And so yeah, I feel like actually coming through those church hurt wounds, like coming into your own when it comes to your religious beliefs and experiences, and your faith, and really, as we were talking about Chiron being kind of a return to the oneness, I really feel like if you have that ninth house wound, again, that's Sagittarius's house, that centaur energy right there, that really um believing in your own way and feeling your connection in your way and trusting and coming to terms with that and feeling secure in that and really returning to that oneness is the way to heal that wound. I think having Chiron and Taurus in the ninth house, and just being able to say, okay, well, I grew up, you know, in a hardcore fundamentalist Christian or Muslim or whatever faith. I'm not going to say anything specific, but I grew up in that hardcore faith and it didn't allow me to look at astrology. And I loved astrology and I felt, hurt by not being able to express that part of myself. When you hit 50 and you go through that Chiron return, embrace it all. Do it all.
Do it all.
Yeah.
Yeah. I I wonder if people would Chiron or if it would lend towards people exploring different religions and things like that, and like not really finding a place, and like you said, finding the oneness of it all, like going from
Mm-hmm.
different things and then you're like, oh, it's all
Yeah.
about oneness.
I could see that. I could see that. I definitely, I grew up Muslim. I was Buddhist for a while. I was Christian. I've just, yeah, totally. That
Yeah,
definitely resonates.
yeah. That's
Yeah.
so funny. And so Chiron in the 10th house is about your visibility, your career, your reputation. Even it could, your father wounds, like anything you got
Mm.
from your father or authority figures in general. Maybe you feel like you do not get the recognition or that you deserve, or you don't feel like good enough. Maybe when it comes to your career, maybe you don't know like what it is that you want to do. Maybe you jump from career to career, or you don't feel capable, because you never got that reinforcement from your authority figures or things like that. You may constantly have issues with your bosses, your parents, and just like any sort of authority figures, and you may feel the need to overcompensate to prove yourself. You may feel like in public sort of roles, you may constantly feel judged, or like people don't accept you for who you really are. This is also one of fear of being seen. I know we talked about that with a couple of the other ones, but it's also about that because the 10th house rules, again, your public image, your reputation, how you're viewed in leadership um, roles and things like that. um and you just may not get the recognition. My daughter has this, and I'm telling you, she will work her butt off, and sometimes I feel like she does not get the recognition. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And I get so annoyed with people. Like, you better recognize my baby. I think some of those, I think I've seen some healing in it for her, especially as time has gone on. It still shows up here and there, but I definitely see some healing versus what it was when she was younger. It's so interesting to look at, your children's charts and people that and see these things show up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, One of the ways that you can heal is decide what it means, what success means to you. You know what I mean? You decide what, maybe other people don't see it or acknowledge it, but decide what it means to you. And as long as you are authentically doing your best, showing up, and it's in alignment with your values, and that you're not hurting anyone, or misleading anyone, or mistreating or cheating or anything like that, if you know that you're doing what you're supposed to do, stand tall in that. You know what I mean? I feel like Chiron in the 10th house could be a delayed success as well, because it's ruled by Saturn, and sometimes it takes a while for you to get the recognition that you deserve. You may have to put in some work with Chiron in the
Mm-hmm.
10th house. But I think if you hold steady and strong, Saturn always pays, and always does. It could just be a little delayed. This is such a slow moving planet, ruling that 10th house. So I think it's one of having to learn patience as well. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? So yeah.
Okay. So the 11th house, Taurus, Chiron and Taurus in the 11th. 11th house is going to be about your sense of belonging and community. And so there's a lack of security, a lack of feeling valued by, some sort of group, a community, just whatever group you feel like you should belong to. And you probably do belong to, you just don't feel accepted. You don't feel like you belong. You don't feel like you fit, right? You may feel like an outcast, an outlier. Um, and so the way you would really want to look at that is to really look for aligned connection. Look for, maybe not trying to fit, be a what do they call it, around a square peg going into a round hole. Maybe not looking to get into groups that you don't belong in, or trying to be a part of places where you're not accepted for who you are, and instead really looking for aligned connection, finding your people. You know what I mean? And like I said, a lot of times it's us ourselves that's causing the issue. Is if you are, you know, a square peg trying to go into a round hole, go find a square hole. you know, and sometimes, you are the right fit for that community or that group or that whatever it is, but that you're just perceiving yourself to not be worthy, to not be a part of, to not feel secure in that group. And so really doing that self work, to feel that aligned connection, right? And um, yeah, I think that's all I got for 11th house.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, that 11th house can be very challenging when it comes to like fitting in. You know what I mean? Like
That
even
Aquarius energy that,
yeah,
yeah.
feeling like an outcast. Maybe in school, maybe you experience that that sort of
Mm-hmm.
energy, or just like any kind of group that you're a part of. I feel like Chiron in the 12th house is like the outcast, but I mean, excuse me, the 11th house. Let's
Yeah.
I'm thinking about 12th house because we're wrapping up and we're going to go through 12th house really quickly, which is about the subconscious, it's about spirituality, it's about isolation and even like karmic ancestral patterns, hidden grief, just things like that. Like your womb can be hard to identify with Chiron in the 12th house. It could be like really buried deep beneath the surface, and you may even find yourself disassociating with that Chiron in the 12th house,
Mm.
not really knowing how to heal, not knowing how to pinpoint it really. You know what I mean? People with Chiron in the 12th house may feel unseen, and they may struggle to feel heard, or they may find themselves similar to the 11th house, like that outcast energy, but they may find themselves feeling isolated a lot,
Mm-hmm.
like having to be solitude. I think jail is related to 12th house
Yes.
themes and stuff. So um, you may have people with Chiron in the 12th house may see themselves in and out of prison. You know what I mean, or some sort of confinement, if you will. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
A lot of times there is a lot of quiet suffering and secret shame with Chiron in the 12th house. You know what I mean? Like you don't really know, or no one may know that you're suffering. No one may know, what you're carrying or feeling. You know what I mean? It's kind of like it's like one of those wounds that you're like really carrying it all on yourself, on your
Right.
own, and it could be so deep within that again, like even you don't know what it is. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It can be very Chiron in 12th house sounds it's kind of reminding me of similar to like 8th house themes, but just because it can be so deep and it can be so heavy. But I feel like with the 12th house, you're kind of carrying it on your own. You know what I mean? It's kind of like you might be by your lonesome. And so
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's about definitely learning how to um, release any shame, learn to receive, get out of survival mode, allow people to help you. Like that may be a really big one with Chiron in the 12th house. Allow yourself to receive help and know that you have value, and that you belong, and you don't necessarily have to be in the world by yourself, and you don't have to carry it all by yourself. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? I think that Chiron in the 12th house, it you can probably some of the most compassionate and you know what I mean, like sensitive people. You know what I mean, and I feel like that's a gift. And you can help other people because you know what it feels like to be alone. Like these are probably those people who go into the jails. Like if they're not like one of the people who be like in jail and stuff, they're the ones who go into like do prison ministries and things like that. That's how you can
Right.
kind of like heal that wound, help people who may be stuck on the other side. um yeah, and just know that your worth, it doesn't have to be earned. Your worth was given to you when you came here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
um and really leaning into that. um yeah, that's it.
That's it. That's all the houses.
That's all the houses.
And we are well past our hour.
Yes, we are. And we want to just thank you all so much. We hope that you all got something out of this. Again, for everyone who will be experiencing this transit, because even though it's going to be a return for some of us, collectively, we will all be experiencing Chiron and Taurus. It just may hit a little deeper for some of us who are experiencing our Chiron return. So let's remember to be kind to one another. Let's remember to Just know that we are all worthy. I'm worthy. You're worthy. He's worthy. Everybody's worthy. I feel like Oprah now. You know what I mean? Everybody's worthy. You got worth. You got worth. Everybody gets worth. Okay. Nobody gets left behind. And we will see you guys next week. We'll be going into some practical ways to lean into materials security and spirituality. We'll have some things to share with you all in study hall next Wednesday. Until then, this has been Earth School Journey. I am Uni, and this is Umi Stuff.
Hey, y'all.
See you next time. Peace.
Peace.